So one of the other things that has been quite difficult to adjust to with moving to Queensland or Brisbane specifically is the weather. I guess Brisbane and Queensland itself are known for the heat. I think there is actually a sports team called Brisbane Heat. I think it's some sort of basketball team or something like that, but it is very accurate. Um, the weather is something that people always sort of mention, and people kind of look at Brisbane as like the nice sunny beachy area, but when you actually live in it day in, day out, you realize that it's not like a cool breeze kind of heat. It's like a hot sort of sauna heat. So I'll talk a little bit about that. With the weather in Brisbane all year round, it is quite hot, and because it is a tropical sort of region, it's not just hot, but it's also humid. So it's not that dry sort of heat, but it's almost like you're in a sauna 24/7, and it just depends how hot or warm it is. Summer is probably the worst, as you'd expect. So in summer, or even right now in spring and leading up to summer, I wake up at about 6 a.m. So when I wake up, I go for a walk, and even with my morning walk, it can get quite hot, and I do start to sweat quite quickly, and that's at 6 a.m. As you can imagine, the heat kind of builds up throughout the day, and in the middle of the day, it's probably the worst. But even at night, when you do have those really hot days, I don't know why, but the heat just kind of retains in the atmosphere or the floor or the soil, and it just keeps emitting heat. So even at, I would say, 9 p.m., 10 p.m., it can be still quite warm and muggy, and that's quite common in summer. I think you'd also note that in Brisbane, or I've at least noticed this, a lot of people wear hats and sunglasses and probably sunscreen throughout the year. I've noticed this a lot more here than in New South Wales. And the one other thing that I would definitely sort of note as being more prominent here is people use umbrellas. So in Sydney or in other sorts of, I guess, countries or cities, you'd see people using umbrellas for rain. In Brisbane, I've noticed it's more common for people to be using an umbrella to protect themselves from the sun rather than the rain. It's a little bit ironic, but it kind of just goes to show how hot and how strong the sun is here. The other thing is in summer, you also see quite a lot of people driving with gloves and like hats or face coverings. And I have heard a lot of older people talking about how they have had skin cancers on their hands because they're putting their hands on the steering wheel. And then over time that sun just builds up and causes skin cancers. So it is quite a common thing to see. With summer, I think the other thing to note is because it is a tropical kind of zone in Queensland and Brisbane, you do get a lot of rain too, which is a bit ironic, but people have told me, like when I first moved here, people said, when you leave the house, always bring an umbrella and always shut your windows. And it has happened before where I left the house, it was nice and sunny, didn't expect anything, and then when I was out, it started pouring like crazy, and it kind of flooded the room a little because the window was like even just this much open. Winter is probably the most enjoyable sort of season, personally. It is still quite warm, but I guess it's a little bit more tolerable, and the humidity is down a little bit. I think it's funny because people in Queensland find the temperature of 15 or 16 degrees quite cold, whereas in Sydney that's probably a bit more comfortable in winter time. I think in winter the average is about 20 degrees anyway. Spring and autumn are like the sort of middle ground. I guess with spring it is leading up to summer, so it is spring right now and it is quite hot. I think today is 32 degrees, so it does kind of vary a little bit. But what I would say is with those two seasons, there are a lot of flowers blooming, particularly, in the end of winter and the beginning of spring. And it is kind of weird because I have heard that a lot of people have moved from Sydney or other regions of Australia to Queensland or Brisbane because of asthma, and their asthma has improved. So I'm not exactly too sure what the correlation is there, but it would be pretty interesting to know. But yeah, that's pretty much, to sum it up, the weather in Brisbane. It's almost like you're in a hot box, not a hot box, but a sauna all the time. And it just, it just varies from hot to hotter and then to hot again. So if you don't like the heat, either stay indoors or maybe choose a different location to move to.